welcome back to my podcast. I haven't been here in a while. I thought it was only a few weeks, but then I checked and I think it was March. I think March was the last time I posted. So sorry about that. And the only reason that I haven't been here is because I was focusing on my main YouTube channel, Crybaby Kate, which is where I do more deep dives, more like video essays, more kind of commentary and stuff, and I have been busy over there. So if you want to go over there, you know where it is. I'll leave a link below. But over here is more like chatting, it's more yapping, it's more relaxed. I'm not like, structuring these episodes, or I'm not like really planning on what I'm gonna say. And I also like to answer some of your emails. So even though I haven't really been posting, I haven't posted here at all in the last few months, I still have been getting some of your emails coming through, and I always like to, offer some big sister advice or some advice from my years doing somatic therapy training and my yoga training experience and blah 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 whatever. But obviously everything, all the advice that I'm giving, it's like based on my experience and coming from a place of experience, and coming from, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving, medical advice or anything. So just always remember to trust yourself, and always remember to take whatever feels really good. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you, and that's completely fine as well. And also I'm, trying to figure it out as well. I'm also on my own journey, and maybe we haven't been on very similar paths, so the advice might not be 100% suited to you. It might not even be 100% suited to me. But anyway, I have kind of in the last few years stepped back, and I probably have spoke about this before, but I've kind of stepped back from the like healing world and like needing to like fix myself, or needing to kind of desperately try and heal or let go or whatever, and I've kind of landed in a really gorgeous balanced place of self-acceptance, and there's always room to make positive changes, and there's always room to kind of learn lessons and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more relaxed, I suppose. My like healing life, or that kind of part of my life, is way more relaxed than it used to be. Like in the past, it was coming from a place of desperation rather than like anything else. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't coming from a place of love for myself. It wasn't coming from a place of like genuine desire to feel joy and happiness. It was coming just from a place of like, this is so uncomfortable feeling. I feel so bad. I need this to go away immediately, And that resulted in me doing things wrong a lot of the time. It resulted in me burying my head in the sand and avoiding a lot of the stuff that I needed to fix, and a lot of the stuff that I needed to address. And a lot of the time in the like spirituality world, it's all about like love and light and feeling really good and positive vibes and high vibration and which basically is just like a complete avoidance of any like negative emotions, even though whatever, they're all valid in their own way. And burying your head in the sand around anything uncomfortable, or avoiding the truth for how you really feel about things, and always wanting to stay in like a high vibration, which in my opinion is bullshit. And we've probably spoke about that before. And then it goes like the other way, where I was doing a lot of talk therapy for like years and years and years, even up until recently, like this year even, I was in talk therapy again. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but being so in your head the whole time, trying to like really intellectualize and cognitively, logically try and understand things to the tiniest little atom, to try and dissect everything over and over and over again in like a desperate attempt to understand. I need to understand this. And I think talk therapy is really good for identifying things that happened and like naming things that happened, but it's not necessarily, in my opinion allegedly, it is not, if you get kind of stuck there and you get kind of stuck in that loop, it isn't necessarily the best, which is why I love somatic so much, which is why I love getting into the body, getting into the nervous system. Anyway, what am I even talking about? I don't know why I'm saying all this, but anyway, I still really enjoy talking all things kind of, healing, and all things trauma and recovery, and not just about like the bad side of it or whatever, not just about like the negative effects of being traumatized, or not just like, obviously I'm interested in that, I've always been interested in that, but about what happens after, about what happens when you do come out the other side of it, about how you can learn to bring all that stuff with you and it's not as heavy anymore, and you create more capacity to be joyful and to have more fun and to stop kind of running away from things or masking or trying to coat them in alcohol or drugs or whatever. Having the genuine capacity for all sorts of emotions without burying your head in the sand. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just wanted to tell you about something that has been really annoying me lately, and I don't know why. It's completely irrational, the amount of anger that I feel about this, but people who are on TikTok probably know what I'm talking about. It has jumped recently from my TikTok to my YouTube algorithm. And I ended up watching one of the videos last night because I was just like, hate watching it. People who go cave diving or like spelunking or like cave exploring, and then they get stuck in like the teeniest, tiniest thing. I'll insert some like videos here or whatever. People who have kids at home. Usually it's people who have children at home and like a pregnant wife at home, and they decide to go exploring like the Devil's Arsehole cave in Colorado or something, and then they get stuck. Duh. And I'm like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for in there? What do you think you're going to find? I don't know. It's obviously just a world that's completely alien to me. It's not that I'm not an explory type of girl. I definitely am. I do like a bit of an explorer, but I do not want to be in a cave. I don't want to go in there. I don't care what's in there. I don't need to see it. I don't care. I'm not curious at all. I don't even have 1% curiosity or interest in seeing what's inside that cave. You can go. I'll guard the door. I'll mind the door. I'll make sure that the mouth of the cave stays open, but I'm not going in. I will not be going into the cave. I don't mind if it was like raining and you're like, okay, we have to just like huddle under, get a bit of shelter or something, but I will be at the mouth of the cave. I am not going in. As soon as I can't see the way out, it's over. It's over. Anyway, those videos have been popping up so much, and it's obviously because I'm watching them. Do you know what I mean? It's obviously because I'm watching them and the algorithm is like, oh, she loves this. And in reality, I'm watching it like so annoyed, so angry. None of this is mandatory. None of this needed to happen. There was no need for any of this. None of this. Nobody ever needs to go inside a cave, in my opinion. But as unnecessary as I find it for people to go cave exploring and to get stuck, and I'm not just talking about like wandering around in a cave, I'm talking about the like extreme when you have to like get down and like slide your body through these like really thin, between two really thin slabs, and like you're like miles under the earth or whatever. I don't know, miles, feet, I don't know, whatever. That's what I'm talking about. It's so unnecessary, but as unnecessary as I find it for people to do that, it's also completely unnecessary for me to watch it and be like enraged by people who decide to go spelunking. Anyway, it will never be me. Will never be me. But anyway, the reason that we are gathered here today is because I got an email that I wanted to answer, because I see a lot of like reoccurring themes between people. Like sometimes the situations might be different, the circumstances, the like deeper details might be different, but ultimately it's the same theme, or it's the same, under the same umbrella of the same situation or whatever, which is why I really enjoy kind of offering what I can to people who are kind of experiencing a lot of the same thing, because as I said, there's always a load of reoccurring themes. So we're not that different from each other, really. We're not that different from each other. And I know when we're going through things, it feels like we're the only person on earth who's going through it. But realistically, like most people who are going through things, it's a lot, there's a lot of people who understand, is what I'm trying to say. And based on all the reoccurring themes, we're not that different from each other. But anyway, this question came in, and I removed some of the details because we don't need to know all the details, okay? I just removed some of the details and I made it a little bit more, just broad and generic or whatever. But I keep getting stuck in the same mental loop about my past relationship and an old friendship that ended badly a few years ago. Logically, I should have moved on by now, and I find myself repeating conversations, feeling angry and imagining what I should have said or done differently. It's not all the time constant, but when it does come, it comes in waves and it takes over my whole mood for a few days. I've done therapy, I journal, I try and focus on the present moment, but it always feels like something in me is holding on to it. A part of me is kind of embarrassed that I'm still affected by something that's over, and I don't know how, and I don't know if I'm actually processing it or just stuck in it. Is it possible to actually let go of something even though my mind keeps insisting on returning to it, even when I really don't want it to? So that was a question that came in, and I wanted to talk about that because this is a theme. As I said, there's like recurring themes of people feeling stuck, people feeling like they're ruminating, people feeling like they're stuck in the same loop, or people feeling like they can't let go of something and they're kind of stuck in the past in some way. So that is a question or a thing that I see like over and over again. And when I was taking on clients over the last few years, that was also a theme. And when I was working more with clients, and that is something that I am going to return to, by the way. I want to do group again. I want to advertise again to take on clients again and all that kind of stuff. So keep your eyes peeled, because that is definitely coming back. I just need to I need to like get my myself moving again in that direction. But anywho, this is what I would say to someone who feels like they can't let go, or they feel like they're kind of playing the same thing over and over again. They're repeating something from their past over and over and over again. So when something happens to us, when we experience a rupture, or when something bad happens to us, when we go through a breakup, or someone betrayed us, or someone really, really, really disappointed us and let us down, or something happened that was bad, whatever, insert whatever you want there. Okay, something happened that was bad. What happens is we go through this loop. We go through a loop of the thing happening, the rupture, the argument, the trauma, the whatever happened, the betrayal, that happens. We have a reaction to it. Okay, so we have our emotional reaction or our physiological reaction or whatever to that thing that happened. And then sometimes what happens is we get an apology, or there's justice, or that person faces consequences for their own actions. They're held responsible, they're held accountable. And when there is some form of justice that's been served, we then move back into this place. When there's a resolution, we kind of move back into this place of conclusion and settling. The body and the nervous system can kind of start to go back to a place of just like normal regulation. But a lot of the times what happens is when the thing happens, when the betrayal or the rupture or the thing happens, we have our emotional reaction to it, or we have just any sort of reaction to it, which is completely normal, natural. If we don't get accountability or a sincere apology or a form of justice in any way, shape or form, if we don't experience the justice, and that person doesn't take accountability and blah, 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 it's not acknowledged properly in any way, shape or form, it's harder to get to the place of settling. It's harder to, if there's no resolution to what happened, and we feel like there isn't kind of closure, if you will, we find it hard to kind of move into that place of settling, into that place of like, completion. I'm not saying it's impossible to get there. Obviously, it's not impossible to get there. There are things that we can do to get there, but this is a cycle that I have seen a lot. And I just wanted to name that, if that makes sense for anyone that's listening. If you've been through something and you're having a hard time settling, you're having a hard time completing the loop, you haven't come back to a place of resolution because you never got justice, or the other person never faced accountability. That is so common. That is so unbelievably common. And that is one of the reasons why people tend to stay stuck on the past, because the loop hasn't completed. The loop hasn't come to a place of settling. The trauma loop, or whatever you want to call it, hasn't come to a place of resolution and settling. So we essentially can stay stuck, or feeling like we're kind of stuck in this place of like charge activation in our body, which is the reaction to what happened to us. We can't move to the next thing because we're still stuck on the last thing, because we haven't got accountability. There hasn't been justice. So we're kind of stuck in this place of like feeling this lingering energy within us. And maybe it's not all the time. Like the person who wrote in the question said that it isn't constant, but it comes and goes in waves. So when it comes to like letting go of something that happened to us in the past, letting go and like moving on and just leaving it in the past and just releasing it or whatever, that is so much easier said than done. Like it is actually so much easier said than done. And this is an example of what I was talking about earlier when I was in my like spiritual healing era and I was trying to let things go. It basically just meant like stop talking about it, stop thinking about it. Just be happy and just, you know, stop talking about it, which is pure sticking your head in the sand and complete refusal to acknowledge like the harm that was done, the lack of accountability, the lack of justice, you know, the real life implications and consequences that I had to face because of the decisions that someone else made against me. You know what I mean? And burying your head in the sand about that it probably isn't going to work. And burying and suppressing those emotions within our body or within our brain is probably also not going to work, because when you bury something, if we have an intense emotion or an intense reaction about something or intense feelings about a situation that happened to us, and if we try to shove them into the corner of our mind or sweep them under a rug in our brain, that emotion gets buried within us, but it gets buried alive. It gets buried alive. So it's still active in there, even though it might be in the back of our mind, even though we might have shoved it into a cupboard in the back of our heart somewhere. It's still alive, and it gets buried alive, and it will probably eventually resurface. And when it does resurface, it's probably bigger than it was because it's been in there bubbling and fermenting and growing legs. And when it does resurface, it's probably not going to be very pretty when it does resurface. And that can resurface as, you know, taking it out on someone who didn't do anything to us, being like really highly reactive, being like really hyper vigilant, not trusting people, and blah blah blah, whatever. Anyway, there's loads of things, there's loads of ways that could come out. Shouting, losing our temper, like that type of thing. But anyway, that's not good. None of that stuff is good, so we don't want to do that. So what we do want to do, instead of shoving these emotions deep inside of us and letting them fester and letting them like ferment in there, what we actually want to do is learn how to acknowledge them, sit with them, give them space, and allow them to be. So that's more like a somatic therapy, and we'll get into that practice at the very end. I'll keep talking for a little while before we get there, but that's more of a somatic therapy approach, which is to like actually give these emotions space to be, to accept them. It isn't necessarily to like squeeze them out and release them and get rid of them. How do I get rid of this? How do I release this? That's part of it. But a lot of somatic therapy is to kind of expand our capacity to contain these emotions and expand our capacity to like accept them and let them be. And then what happens is they actually naturally kind of start to dissipate and they start to find their way out when we aren't trying to like force them down and we aren't trying to suppress them or silence them. So what we can also do is when the wave hits us and when we do start to feel all of these emotions again and all of these like past feelings again, and what usually happens is we get a sense of shame. I should be over this. Why am I still feeling this way? Why am I still annoyed about this? What we can do instead to kind of like move away from a shame-based like thought process or whatever into more curiosities, to like ask questions instead of thinking, why am I still thinking about this, and getting annoyed at ourselves and then feeling like we're doing something wrong and feeling like we're really broken, is to actually just keep inviting in curiosity. What part of me is crying right now? What part of me is feeling really upset right now? Maybe it's the part of you that didn't feel seen, didn't feel heard, had your boundaries crossed, was lied to, was disrespected, whatever. Like, what part of you is really upset right now? What part of this scenario feels unfinished? What part of this feels like I haven't got to a place of settled? What part of this am I not settled in? Why have I not settled yet? What part of this still feels unfinished? What part of this still feels like there's no closure? What did I not get out of that situation? What did I not receive in that situation that I feel like I should have, or I feel like I deserved? Are there some unwritten rules of healing and letting go that I feel like I haven't followed? Or do I feel like I'm breaking the rules somehow? Or have I set these invisible rules on myself and I feel like I'm failing? This also creates a little bit more space for the emotions, like what we were talking about earlier. If we have shame when the wave reappears and the feelings from the past happen again and we start to feel it all again and we find ourselves looping or ruminating, if we think shame-based thoughts and we're like, why am I thinking like this? Why am I still feeling like this? I should be over it by now. That is again, a suppression. That is trying to shove it back in the corner. That is trying to make it be quiet. That is trying to make it go away. That will not work. But if we're inviting in curiosity and we ask questions around it, and we're just like, what is this trying to show me? What is still unsaid about the situation? What have I not? What is it still trying to teach me? What part of me is upset about this? That's actually creating more space for it to be, more acceptance around the whole thing, instead of trying to like shut it up and just make it be quiet. Also, that when we are letting go of something or we are moving on from something, usually most of us will probably like understand this. You know, things that have happened to us in the past, you don't let it go all at once. It happens gradually over time. It like chips away and little bits fragment and fall off as we kind of go through life. We're not holding this huge big rock and then we put it down and turn around and walk away and never think about it again. And we're just immediately relieved of the burden of holding this really big rock that we've been holding for a year or whatever. Usually what happens is we let it go little bit over time, gradually. And give yourself a little bit of credit here. I would say that you probably have let go of more than you realize. Any sense of injustice or any sense of resentment that you're still carrying now, it's probably less than what it used to be, which is like a reason to feel really good, even though you are still carrying it and you don't want to anymore and you still find yourself stuck in those loops. You probably have created more space since then to feel joy and to move and to create more space for happiness and laughter and fun and creativity than when it happened, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to like, sugarcoat anything or bypass anything, but you probably have let go of more than you realize already. And trusting ourselves that we will let go when we're ready. We will let go. We will not carry this with us forever. We will let go little bit by little bit, as we build a capacity to contain it, as we build a capacity to accept it, as we build a capacity for it to be, and as we also build a capacity for like new things to come into our life as well. Another thing we can remember is if our hands are full and we're holding on to things and we really can't let them go, that's okay. We don't have to let it go all at once. But the more space that we're holding on to something from the past, or the more space that's being filled with stuff from the past, the less room there is for like something new to come on. So in order to receive, we have to have space. We have to have empty hands, but we don't have to have fully empty hands, obviously. Like, I still think that even if we're getting over something from the past and like something new comes in, or a new experience or a new opportunity, we don't have to be fully empty and like fully spacious and fully healed in order to like gradually let that new thing in. Those two things can happen simultaneously. You can still be healing from something and also welcoming something new in. You know what I mean? Anyway, but just keep that in your mind as well. In order to receive, there has to be some room. There has to be some room there. Okay, so I'm going to walk everyone through a somatic experiencing tool or a somatic experiencing exercise to help us let go. So this actually can work for anything. This can work for like grief, it can work for heartbreak, it can work for resentment, it can work for someone who feels betrayed, it can work for anything, any sort of uncomfortable feeling in the body, or any sort of something that we're holding on to in the body that we would like to make peace with, or we would like to maybe move through the body or whatever. This is a really good exercise for that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to locate on our body. We're going to bring awareness to the pain that we're carrying, and we're going to try and locate it on our body. So maybe we can feel it in our head, in our mind, in between our ears. Maybe we can feel it in our chest. Maybe we can feel it in our guts. Maybe we can feel it in our legs. Maybe we can feel it on top of our head. Maybe it's actually not on the body. Maybe it's just like a force field around the body. Maybe we can feel it pushing down on our shoulders, in our neck. Maybe it is just a shield or a veil which we're seeing the world through. Maybe it's just like a constant pair of goggles that's like clouding our vision and interfering with the way that we're seeing the world. Or maybe it's just like a filter in our brain, or something that's just like constantly bobbing around, maybe it's in our blood, maybe we feel it in our heart really heavy. Try and see, can we locate it in our body or in our field somewhere? And it's also okay if you can't locate it. It's also okay if it is just a thought, if it is like a cognitive awareness of something that happened, or an injustice or a betrayal or whatever, a trauma or a rupture, whatever it is. Just even being aware of it in your brain is more than enough. You don't have to actually locate it in your body. But anyway, trying to figure out where we feel it in our body, where it's being held, where it's kind of crunching up our guts or like crunching down on our shoulders, and where are we carrying it, to bring a level of acceptance to it. Because again, we feel shame. Usually people feel a lot of shame for carrying this with us or for having the thoughts or whatever reoccurring. To bring in a level of acceptance, as if we have like an itch on our skin. When we feel like we have an itch on our skin, we're not like, oh my God, I'm such a piece of shit, my skin is itchy. No, we just kind of accept it. We scratch it, we move on. It's just there, you know? If we feel something, like I feel this jumper rubbing against my chest, I can feel that. I'm aware that it's there. And it's just there. I can feel my hair on my neck. I can feel these plugs on my ears. I can feel the tongue in my mouth. I can feel my eyelids on my eyes. But none of that makes me a piece of shit. None of that's wrong, or none of that's broken. It just is. It just is. So to try and locate it on the body, or locate it within our energy fields, locate it within our mind, and to allow it to just be there. Not to try and shove it back into the corners, not to try and suppress it or make it be quiet or make it disappear, to allow it to be there. The same way that your nails are on your fingers, the same way that your belly is there, the same way that your hair is there, the same way that your nose is there, just to accept it, that it's there. To sit with it and to validate it as well. To name it. I feel broken, I feel hurt, I feel sad, I feel betrayed, I feel injustice. To name it and to validate it. Not to try and shove it away, not to try and make it nameless, not to try and make it anonymous, not to try and make it disappear. To name it, to validate it, to look it in the eye, to let it be there, to feel it, and to sit with it. And to not villainize it, because usually when we're trying to shove things away, when we're trying not to address things, when we're trying to make it be quiet, make it disappear, we're kind of also villainizing it in a way. We're turning it into this like big spooky thing, or this like evil bad thing that is ruining us, or that is like poisoning us or whatever. But to sit with it, to accept it, to name it, to validate it, and to let it just be there. What we're doing there is creating more capacity within our nervous system, within our body, within our mind. We're giving it more room. We're basically just giving it more room to like move around. And what that does is genuinely what that does is it actually eventually will start to dissipate. Like what I was saying earlier about chipping away. It will chip away at it, and little by little it will start to dissipate out of the body by just accepting it, and by just naming it and letting it be there, and sitting with it, even for 5 minutes, even for 1 minute, just letting it be there. And also as well to realize as well that there's nothing wrong with us for like having natural reactions to feeling the injustice of trauma or betrayal or cheating or abuse or whatever happened. There's nothing wrong with us for having reactions to that. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. There are parts of us that are hurt, and there's parts of us that are scared. And a lot of these parts are also trying to protect us. These are like our protector, our inner protector coming out to make sure that it's not going to happen again. So these parts are not parts that are broken, and they're not parts of us that are evil at all. They're actually trying to protect us. So there's nothing wrong with having any of these feelings. But of course, a lot of the times they could be holding us back. They could be keeping us stuck. A lot of the times they are kind of keeping us stuck in past experiences and in past realities. And sometimes there is a more fulfilling and whole life for us on the other side of that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm definitely going to be back again. I'm going to make more of an effort to be back here again, doing podcast, answering your emails. And thank you for being here. And I will see you soon. Check out my other channel. I'm way more active on my other channel if you want to hear me yapping about stuff over there. But yeah, I will see you soon, and we will talk about something else.